Alright, I'm installing the flashing in 3 stages here. First, I'm chiseling out the old mortar from the mortar joint. Then I pack the joint with new mortar, so I mix it up, and I'll pack it in there as if I'm sort of tuck pointing the joint. And third, then I take my piece of flashing and I just kind of mash it in there, and it works great. Once the mortar dries around the flashing, and once it's attached to the OSB, it's going to be very sturdy there. Nothing's going to move it. If you're doing this work yourself on a similar job, you want to clean out the existing mortar joint really well. So I'm using compressed air and a shop vac to get all of the dust and stuff out of there. And then you also want to wet down the existing bricks with water, because if all the water, bricks are very porous. If they suck the water out of the mortar before the mortar is able to naturally dry, then your mortar is going to be really brittle and kind of crumbly, because the mortar, the cement inside the mortar needs that water in order to complete its chemical reaction it needs to harden and bond. Okay, if you take nothing else away from this video, the main point of everything we're doing with flashing and the OSB and the roofing and everything, the fundamental principle behind this design is that when you're doing a balcony or anything that is roof-like, so my balcony is a roof over my porch below it, everything is a shingle. So there's a piece of copper flashing here on the wall. It is underneath the piece of copper flashing that is coming from the step on my door. So it's following the direction of travel of the water and overlapping everything along the way. So the door overlaps the flashing in the wall, which overlaps the flashing in the post, and then other pieces of flashing around the post that are downhill in the direction water travels are underneath the stuff uphill. And then over top of all of this, I'll put this PVC post flashing over top of it. So, in summary, everything's a shingle. That's all you need to know. Now it's time to lay down a layer of insulation over top of the OSB. The insulation is there to provide a sort of soft, spongy surface for the roof membrane to lie on. This way, impacts on the roof have a lower probability of damaging the roof membrane, and it helps as a moisture barrier. So this is like, I don't know, half-inch or so insulation. It's really cheap. Each one of these big panels weighs like 5 pounds. So it's really easy to deal with. I just cut it with a box knife, so it's really easy to cut around all of my posts and everything. And then I'm fastening it in with regular deck screws inside of wide plastic washers, and it holds it down pretty well. So I'll put a layer of this over everything, just like I did with the OSB. Luckily, this is quite a bit easier. And then I'll lay the roof membrane on top of the insulation. The roof membrane is quite a bit less easy to deal with than the insulation, but it's going to work great. So this is a single 15 by 15 foot sheet of EPDM rubber. I think it was actually made by Firestone, so it's just like a thick rubber that you, I don't know, find in a tire or something. And it's good to get one sheet if you can. The fewer holes, cuts you have to make in order to have it fit around everything, the better. So this ensures a very reliable barrier to water getting underneath it. And yeah, basically you spread it out, and I fold it in half, and then I glue down one side, and then I glue down the other side. And then on each corner, on each edge, I make cuts so that it fits around each post. And that's the part I was most afraid of. I was afraid of making any cut in this thing, but ended up being pretty easy to do and pretty easy to make it fit. I wanted to capture this part in case it's helpful. I'm cutting the slice in the rubber to serve as an opening for the posts, and I do this for each post. And basically all I do is I line it up against the post, and I cut a big long slice all the way to the end of the rubber. I separate it, and then I just hang it back over the edge, and I cut a little 90-degree piece off as well to account for the square shape of the post. And this works out just fine. This was the part I was probably most unsure about in terms of my own limited talents being applied in this project. Everything else was pretty easy, and it turns out that this wasn't so bad either. So this is what the posts look like, sticking up through the rubber. This is probably the part I was most worried about when I decided to go with this sort of single rubber membrane system, is cutting these holes right, not screwing it up, because if you screw up really badly, you have to get a new sheet. But as it turns out, this part was not as difficult as I feared, and there is a lot of sort of tolerance for laziness, sloppiness. You don't have to be as perfect as you think. I mean, this, in some sense, like, this isn't perfect, but once this flashing goes over it and everything's taped up and sealed up, this is going to work fine. I did these posts earlier, so I think this is coming together pretty well. So once I get all these holes cut, next I'm going to glue down this membrane, and then we can continue on with the project. So in a lot of ways, the whole essential component of this project is getting this roof on right here. Applying this roof membrane and waterproofing the surface. That was the main problem we started with, and this will fix it. But it's really funny how, a lot of times the main thing that you work so hard to get to is like, it feels like the least impactful part. Like I'm just gluing a big sheet of rubber to something. It's like I don't know, building a macaroni picture or something. So this wasn't hard at all. You just put glue down, and you wait like a couple minutes for it to dry, not completely, but get kind of sticky and less like sopping wet. And then you just roll the membrane over top of the glue, and it's all fine. As I mentioned earlier, it is important to let the rubber stretch out for a day or so. So you just lay it down and let it sit there and let gravity do its thing. Because I did this a couple days after I originally unfurled it. So it's all nice and flat, kind of naturally. All of the folds came out of it. And yeah, and then I just use a big push broom after I glue it down to smooth out any, air bubbles or any sort of imperfections or anomalies that I can visually see. And I'm sort of gluing it up the side a little bit. There's going to be extra at the end. You want to have extra, so if you're doing this, get a piece that's of rubber that is bigger than you think it is, bigger than you think it needs to be by a couple feet, because you'll like having the extra wiggle room for, either wanting to use it for more space than you thought, or extra give in case you screw something up. So this is it for putting down the roof. Again, all the work that led up to this, and this was the kind of least interesting part, but it's important, so I thought I'd show it. And now I'll move on to some more demanding things, like getting the posts perfectly flashed and sealed. So what I'm doing is, first of all, I'm sealing together the two flaps of the roof membrane that were split when the original incision was made for the post. This is why it's good to have extra rubber around, because I basically cut a square hole in a piece of extra rubber I had and slid that down over the post as a sort of counter flashing below the pre-made piece of post flashing that was also slid down over top. And the square piece is really just designed to provide a uniform surface over top of all the little cuts and things that were made to get the post in. And now I'm using flashing tape to seal up all of the corners, seal the connections between the various pieces of flashing, and I'm rolling it all in with this little steel roller here. This ensures a tight bond between the flashing tape and the surface, and it helps remove any air pockets and other impurities in the flashing tape. And that's about it. I do this for every post. I will only show you me doing one of them. You're welcome. But I hope this is helpful for understanding what this process looks like. These post caps are essential. They keep water out. If you don't put these on and wait, then when it rains, water will just get inside of your post and it'll drip all the way down the post sleeve and into your floor that you just made, your nice dry floor that you spent all that time flashing. It'll be undone. So put caps on as soon as you get the sleeves on, and keep everything dry.